Well, there was a time when Sunday morning TV belonged to my friend Tim Russert.
If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
The line between the press and political operatives has been crossed countless times in both directions. Lewis Howe was an Albany reporter, a chain smoker, who believed that the freshman state senator Franklin Delano Roosevelt was destined for bigger things. Lewis Howe became not just Senator Roosevelt's re-election campaign manager, but the manager of Franklin Roosevelt's political career. There would have been no Governor Roosevelt. There would have been no President Roosevelt without Lewis Howe. Tim Russert got his start in politics the same way I did, working for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan.
And with us now, a man whose Senate staff I served on a decade and a half ago, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the senior senator from New York. Senator, welcome.
Now, I'm biased, but I think Tim was the best moderator of Meet the Press or any Sunday show ever. No one ever questioned Tim Russert's fairness and objectivity, even when he was interviewing his former boss. And I have a feeling Tim Russert would have been cheering for his former protege and friend Chuck Todd yesterday after Meet the Press interview of the former Republican Party chair, Ronna McDaniel, who was hired as a paid contributor at NBC News last week.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? There's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination.
She called me a propagandist, but I've been called worse. She was not hired by MSNBC. I found out about it on Friday when it was publicly announced. I stopped inviting Trump liars like her on this program in 2016 because I've never seen a satisfying, successful interview of a Trump liar and have never thought that I alone could crack the code of how to interview a Trump liar. They are fast and furious liars, and I doubt that I could keep up. I would never interview Ronna McDaniel as an expert on Republican campaigns the way I frequently interview my longtime friend Stuart Stevens, who ran her uncle Mitt Romney's presidential campaign. MSNBC will not use Ronna McDaniel as a political analyst, but I do have a few questions for her whenever she might want to come on this program, and I'll make it easy for her. I'll tell her the questions ahead of time. My first question would be, why did you change your name for Donald Trump? Before Trump ran for president, her name was Ronna Romney McDaniel. How does that feel, to change your name to curry favor with a madman because he doesn't like your uncle? How did you explain that to your kids? What lesson did your kids learn from that? And I mention her kids because she always mentions her kids and that she's a mother whenever she is speaking publicly. And then I would ask her about everything she did to try to help Donald Trump overthrow the election that she yesterday decided to say for the very first time 4 years late that Joe Biden won fair and square. There is an easy way to avoid the controversy NBC News has stumbled into. Don't hire anyone close to the crimes. That's what happened to the Nixon gang, the only comparable predecessors to the Trump gang. Only the Nixon speechwriters, who literally worked in a different building from the White House, far away from the crimes, were welcomed across the line into the news media. William Safire became a serious conservative columnist at the New York Times in 1973, the year before the Nixon crimes were fully exposed. A decade later, David Gergen went to U.S. News and World Report. And John McLaughlin started a syndicated political chat show where he was joined by his fellow Nixon speechwriter Pat Buchanan, and many years later, joined by me. Now, those guys knew Nixon was a criminal, and they never defended Nixon to me privately for even a minute. John Dean, who was deeply involved in Nixon's crimes and served time in prison, emerged 35 years later as a TV commentator on the Clinton impeachment without being paid by any network. CNN gave John Dean a paid position during the Trump presidency, 45 years after the Nixon crimes for which he was convicted. None of the people who were involved in hiring Romney McDaniel were old enough to live through any of that history. Some of them were not born yet. They don't know the Nixon rule, the rule the news media followed when hiring the very few people who were hired from Nixon world. No one close to the crimes. Romney McDaniel was on the phone with Donald Trump while he was trying to illegally overturn the presidential election in Michigan. That is close to the crimes. That is way too close to the crimes. Tim O'Brien knows that, yes, indeed, you actually can have an election in the middle of a political season. He said that a few times, and then that nicely phrased, let's see what we'll bring crime back to law and order. Tim, what's happening to the man's mind? You've studied him a long time. You've spent time with him back when you were writing about him before he sued you for telling the truth about how rich he wasn't. What are you seeing in this?
Well, Lawrence, one, it's a reminder that this is going to be a very long election season. It's going to be 8 months, and we are in the very early stages of it. And Donald Trump is already demonstrating that he can't handle the pressure. Of course, he had a busy day today. He had to appear in court to deal with the fact that he has both massive criminal and civil litigation on his doorstep. But, beyond just the pressure of the day, I think he's already demonstrating that he's going to have a very hard time dealing with the pressure of the weeks and the months as this campaign rolls on. And I think for voters watching him unspool day after day on camera and basically, planting his own foot in his mouth day after day on camera, they're going to have to ask themselves whether or not this is someone who can sit in the Oval Office and should have his finger on the nuclear button and should be overseeing the most dynamic economy on the planet and should be trying to heal a country that has been buffeted by public health crises and political divisions. And he is simply not up to it. And I think it's another reminder as well that this isn't an election that is a Democrat facing a Republican. It is an election in which Joe Biden, a senior public servant who is rational and well-meaning and is surrounded by a group of very talented and capable advisors, is facing off against Donald Trump, who is an unhinged narcissist, who has no interest in anything other than himself, and is willing to torch the Constitution to get there. And one of his comments today is evidence of that we're going to bring crime back into law and order. I'm certain he didn't mean to say that, but at the same time, it's exactly what he's done. Mm-hmm. He has spent the last several years trying to dig out at the foundations of the rule of law and civic society and civil society. So I think anyone watching him today, I think also just has to get ready not to become inured to this, because it'll be really easy to tune this out because we're going to get more of it week after week. And if we don't see it for what it is and hold him accountable for it, then we're going to end up on the wrong side of the stick on this.
Tim, quickly before you go, is Donald Trump going to be able to come up with $175 million in the next 10 days?
I think he probably will, Lawrence, but it's going to tie him up. It's going to affect his business. He already had to post a lot of money in the E. Jean Carroll case. This certainly isn't $454 million, but is still a substantial amount of money. And it'll be interesting to see where he sources the money. We should see if he gets it from abroad or if he gets it from various surety firms, whether or not that throws kind of a body blow into his family's ability to do business in New York anyway.
Tim O'Brien, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Let's listen to what the UN ambassador, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said about this today.
Colleagues, we appreciated the willingness of members of this council to take some of our edits and improve on this resolution. Still, certain key edits were ignored, including our request to add a condemnation of Hamas. And we did not agree with everything in the resolution. For that reason, we were unfortunately not able to vote yes. However, as I've said before, we fully support some of the critical objectives in this non-binding resolution, and we believe it was important for the Council to speak out.
Rick Stigall, how big a departure was this for the United States today?
I think it's a big departure, Lawrence. It's a shot across Bibi's bow. It's a way of saying, look, our patience isn't endless. And by the way, Bibi's reaction was petulant by not sending the folks here. I think it's a prelude to even the consideration of the U.S. making a break with Israel. We don't want to make a break. We still want to keep our leverage. But this is about as far as we can go.
Peter Barnhart, we have all, for our lifetimes, watched the American UN ambassador stand for and beside Israel in the United Nations at moments like these. What was your reaction to what we saw today?
I think the Biden administration is tiptoeing towards the kind of actions that it would genuinely need to take in order to try to stop the carnage, the destruction of Gaza. And what it will take will be for the United States to say to Israel that we will no longer provide military aid for this war, and we will no longer provide diplomatic immunity for Israel in international forums. If the Biden administration is not willing to take those steps, I think Benjamin Netanyahu will continue to defy the United States. But we're seeing for the first time, and this really is a historic shift, that those further steps, the serious use of U.S. leverage, is on the table.
Let's listen to what Donald Trump says about this.
You have to finish up your war. You have to finish it up. You got to get it done. And I'm sure you'll do that. And we got to get to peace. You can't have this going on. And I will say Israel has to be very careful because you're losing a lot of the world. You're losing a lot of support. But you have to finish up. You have to get the job done. And you have to get on to peace. You have to get on to a normal life for Israel and for everybody else.
Rick Stigall, finish up, get the job done. How would you expect the Israeli government to interpret that?
Well, I think they would interpret it as support for the invasion of Rafah, which the administration is very dubious about. I'm going to switch keys for a second, Lawrence. As you know, I am the co-chair of the Board of CARE, the humanitarian organization, and we have been in Gaza and the West Bank for decades and decades supplying food. We've never seen anything like the approach to famine that is happening in Gaza now. In northern Gaza, 83% of the people are suffering from severe malnutrition. The whole point of a ceasefire, even one just a temporary one during the month of Ramadan, is to get food into Gaza. That's a desperate need, and the administration knows that, and that's why they abstained in this ruling today.
Peter Barnhart, the Trump position of you've got to finish up and get the job done, what does that mean to you?
To me, this is based on a lie. This idea that Israel can go in and finish up the job, it sounds familiar to Americans, doesn't it? We finished up the job when we deposed the Taliban. We finished up the job when we deposed Saddam. This is a lie. Yes, Hamas will no longer be in power, but Israel is going to be there fighting an insurgency for a long, long time, whether it calls itself Hamas or something else. We know every one of those people that Israel has killed, the 30,000 or more, they are going to have relatives who are seeking revenge. So this idea that Israel can just go into Rafah and end this is, again, akin to the fallacy that we had when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan. Only a political solution that provides Palestinians a path to freedom can ultimately create safety for Israelis and Palestinians. And unfortunately, this Israeli government has no interest in that whatsoever.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.